war. War never changes. The blood-soaked conflicts of planetary scales did not pass over the planet Jabiim. This was in essence one of the most resounding defeats of the Republic, a topic that neither the clones, nor the Jedi, nor the senators wished to recall. The Republic ignored our pleas for help until they discovered that beneath all this dirt lies a core rich with ore. Now they want that ore, and they won't allow us to trade with the Confederacy of Independent Systems, seeking to seize all the profits for themselves. Let the Jedi generals know, we will fight for our freedom, we will fight to protect our planet, we will send the Jedi home in coffins. Alto Stratus. It is worth starting with the fact that no one anticipated a battle over this planet. It was strategically important due to its rich deposits of valuable ores, but neither the Republic nor the Separatists paid it any attention. It is known that Jabiim was part of the Republic and actively supported its ideals for 3,000 years. Living conditions on this planet were quite harsh and required significant investments, which the government hoped to obtain from the Galactic Senate. But their pleas and later demands were ignored. The final slap in the face for the Jabiimi came with the complete disregard for a plague that worsened the already dire situation of the people. But that was not all. The situation was further exacerbated by Trandoshan marauders and pirates from the Lydia system, who the government also brought to the Senate's attention, which in turn continued to ignore it favorably. To understand the complete horror brought by these pirates, one can note their acts of literally wiping out entire settlements on the planet, which could offer no resistance. Understanding that a rebellion of the hungry and impoverished masses was only a matter of time, Jabiim was ready to cooperate with anyone, which did not take long. The Separatists responded to this plea for help very quickly. This is not confirmed, but considering the covert alliance between the Trandoshans and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, it can be assumed that it was the Separatists who sponsored these marauders and pirates to raid Jabiim in order to deprive their enemy of a beneficial ally. Naturally, the populace, seeing such selfless help from the enemies and complete disregard from their allies, increasingly agitated to join the Separatist alliance. Ironically, the Republic was unaware of this assistance, and it did not particularly concern them. The Separatists, meanwhile, watched as a 3,000-year history of friendship vanished before their eyes. The planet split into two factions: Republican loyalists and Separatist nationalists. The rift was ignored until the last moment, until the confrontation erupted into a full-blown civil war, which did not favor the Republicans by any means. Alto Stratus, a highly charismatic military leader, organized the uprising, literally wiping out the Jabiim Congress, thereby depriving the Republic of loyal figures within the government. However, even here, the Republic ignored the situation on the small planet. Only when the rapidly growing clone war demanded more and more resources by the day did the valuable planet attract the Republic's attention. The Republic finally realized what a mistake it had made. The Alderaan diplomatic corps dispatched to Jabiim could offer nothing beneficial for the planet. After negotiations led nowhere, threats naturally followed. The Confederacy of Independent Systems, CIS, seeing the complete failure of its opponent's diplomatic mission, immediately declared its full support for Jabiim, literally luring the Republic into yet another battle. This did not take long to materialize. For the CIS, this was already a victory. For once an ally, the Republic now appeared to the Jabiimites as an usurper who cared little for the people of this planet, and the Jedi Order as hypocritical patrons mired in the Republic's corruption. The war on Jabiim will be a dirty battle where our forces will have to face both the rebels and the Confederate droid army. I fear that the Republic will suffer losses and sincerely hope that this costly campaign can be avoided. Senator Bail Organa. The command of the Republic forces over Jabiim was assigned to the renowned Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi and several less celebrated Jedi Narkuni and Leska. In total, about 29 members of the Order, including Obi-Wan's apprentice Anakin Skywalker, were sent to Jabiim. It is worth noting that the Republican forces were also supported by numerous followers of Orlis Gilman, who miraculously escaped repression on his planet. The Jedi were given command over more than 9,000 clone troopers, including the famous ARC trooper Alpha-17. Initially, the Republic's forces were stationed on Handooin. Regarding the equipment, the Republic's command decided to test a brand new military development on Jabiim, the massive AT-AT Walker. Essentially, the Republic wanted to turn this battle into a parade of new heavy military equipment. For the first time, armies would massively deploy the experimental AT-XT Walkers, which were to accompany the new AT-AT Walkers. It should be noted that thanks to this battle, the tandem of AT-AT and future AT-ST Walkers will demonstrate perfect synchronization in this battle and future fights. Despite the impressive preparations for the battle, the Republic's command made an unforgivable mistake by ignoring Jabiim's weather conditions when planning the battle. As it turned out, this oversight was fatal. Moreover, even at the preparation stage, it was evident how hastily and naively the Republic was preparing for the invasion. The planet Anduin had been a stationing ground for the Republic's warships since the beginning of the Clone Wars, and on the eve of the battle, separatist saboteurs became active there. As a result, the CIS had all the information about the enemy's forces and the new equipment which was in plain sight, just like at a parade. What's even more amusing is that this base housed one of the first future Star Destroyers which the saboteurs, without much thought, infected with a computer virus. The opposing forces were mainly represented by the Jabiim, more than 10,000 nationalists which eloquently spoke of the sympathies of the planet's population and their hatred for the Republic. The nationalists of Stratos were actively supported by Count Dooku, who sent his battle droids and heavy equipment to assist them. Unlike the Republican command, Stratos was well aware of the climatic features of his homeland and equipped his Nimbus special forces with jet boots for easier movement on the soaked, slippery ground. Excellent reconnaissance helped the separatists prepare a warm welcome for the clone army with their new toys. Alto, a brave warrior and a decent strategist. Given the Republic's use of heavy equipment, which was further hampered by the terrain and weather conditions and the almost complete lack of lightly armored equipment, Stratos planned to win the battle with a series of swift attacks, using the principle of surprise. So, what do we have in the end? The forces are practically equal. Both sides have their aces up their sleeves. The Republic has a considerable amount of heavy equipment and Jedi, as well as a base with well-tuned supplies. The Separatists have broad support from the masses with experienced commanders, excellent reconnaissance, and an army of droids. But I would also note the opposing sides themselves. Did you notice how we briefly mentioned Orlis Gilman and how we highlight Alto Stratos? We do the same with the commanders of the Republic and the Separatists. Only in reverse, we note the Jedi and briefly mention Dooku. The fact is, the Republic viewed this conflict as a civil war, hoping that part of the population would still be on their side and see it as help in liberation. Whereas the Confederacy of Independent Systems, CIS, was aware of a more realistic state of affairs, namely that Jabiim was at war with the Republic. That is, for the inhabitants of this planet, the Republic is essentially a foreign invader and the Separatists are liberators. After all, Dooku did not invade with his army, making the planet another battlefield, but instead handed his army over to the Jabiim, further exalting the CIS in the eyes of the locals. The essence remains the same, but this small moment, as I see it, played a key role in the confrontation. We see that the sides of the conflict are not Orlis Gilman against Alto Stratos, but the Republic against Alto Stratos, which made the people of Jabiim forget their differences and rally around Stratos. The battle dragged on for 2 months. In the first month of the battle, the Republic forces, led by Kenobi and Alpha 17, found themselves near the Troyan base and began attacking the Separatist combat positions. After a while, they were joined by Jedi Master Cerus and his Padawan Aubrey Wynn, an experienced healer who saved not only clones, but also captured nationalists from death. Also participating in attacks on the enemy was a squad of Padawans, although Alpha 17 was quite skeptical of their combat skills. With the support of Captain Orlis Gilman's soldiers, the Republicans successfully broke through and captured one enemy line after another. But all these victories came suspiciously easily. Alpha 17 corroborated this, rightly suspecting that the ease of battles was merely part of the Separatists' plan to split the forces of the enemy. The clone noted the lack of cover, the sluggishness of the machinery, and the impossibility of calling for reinforcements, due to the terrible weather conditions that had only worsened since the battle began. When the Republic army stretched thin along the front line, and the supply nodes were operating at their limits, as the base shelter remained the only major supply node, Stratus and his commandos launched a swift rear attack on this base. They were only noticed in time thanks to Skywalker. The dispatched AT-ATs and STAPs convincingly demonstrated their unsuitability for battle conditions. The unwieldy walkers became convenient targets for the jetpacks of the stormtroopers, and the latter got stuck in the mud. Adding to this were the stretched front lines, partial communication failures due to the same weather leading to the already porous front line beginning to crack and fall apart before their very eyes. During the attack, hundreds of Republic soldiers were killed, including Jedi. Stratus promptly retreated. Along with him, the Nimban commandos also withdrew, finding themselves unable to cope with the garrison of the base shelter despite their successes in destroying heavy machinery. A stalemate ensued. The Republic, which had dominated the front all this time, was losing the initiative and could no longer advance. Alpha understood that although they could now fight the clone army on equal footing, they still lacked the strength for a counterattack across the entire front. Before retreating, they crippled one of the walkers. Kenobi and Alpha hurried to it to rescue the wounded clones from there, but suddenly the AT-AT exploded, and Kenobi and Alpha, not having time to run away from the explosion site, were added to the list of casualties at Jabiim. In reality, the Jedi and the clones survived but were captured by the enemy commander, Asajj Ventress, who took them to Ratatak. Essentially, the Republic lost the operations commander. This event became key in the first month of the battle. Initially, skepticism was limited to the fact that the Republic's victory on Jabiim was clearly not going to be easy. Now, opinions were openly voiced that it might not happen at all. The abominable climate of Jabiim, the deteriorated military equipment, communication disruptions due to incessant rains, the inability to attack the planet's surface from orbit, Stratus's commandos' preparedness, and their swift and deadly attacks caused poor morale in the Republic army. Clones and Jedi began to lose faith in themselves. The Jedi have brought nothing but suffering to our planet, but I swear, soon every Jedi on Jabiim will know our pain. The second month of battle proved to be even worse than the first. Mistakes were not analyzed and vulnerabilities were not addressed. On the 28th day after the start of the battle, the Republic completely lost the initiative, while Alto Stratus, on the contrary, seized it and increasingly struck at the enemy. Near the capital of Jabiim, Shal, the second pivotal battle occurred where all the clones under the command of General and also the next campaign commander on Jabiim, Norcuna, perished, and the Twi'lek was captured and beheaded personally by Stratus. After Norcuna's execution, command was handed over to Jedi General Leska, now the senior Republic officer on Jabiim. On the 30th day after the start of the battle, according to Captain Gilman's calculations, the Republic's losses amounted to 18 Jedi and 9,000 clone troopers. Experienced officers were extremely scarce, and the remaining Padawans, as noted by Alpha 17, were even worse in command than Jedi Knights. Only the destruction of the heart of the Resistance could save the situation. And on the same day, Gilman's reconnaissance reported discovering Stratus on the sharp shore. Leska decided to seize the opportunity to capture Stratus, and began preparing for the attack. All remaining knights were to capture the island while she ordered Anakin and the other Padawans to be sent away with a supply convoy, unwilling to send children to death. Here again, it was separatist intelligence that ultimately passed this information to the Republicans, who, in their desperation, took the bait. On the 33rd day after the start of the battle, the Republican convoy began to move towards the Cobalt Station and was detected by Mimban commando units. Upon learning that a minefield lay in the Padawan's path, Alta Stratus decided to exploit this and deliver another critical blow to the Republic. Ordering all commandos to be gathered, he led them into battle personally. As expected by the Separatists, the convoy, led by the Padawans, stepped into the minefield and began to thin out before their eyes. Almost all Republican AT-XTs were destroyed. The surviving clone troopers were slaughtered by separatist forces led by Stratus and the Padawans, receiving injuries of varying degrees, fled. This battle turned Cobalt Station into a vulnerable node in the tool of the Republic. On the 35th day after the start of the battle, clone troopers under General Leska's command defeated the separatist forces on the sharp shore. But they also suffered heavy losses. Stratus was not found. Another unnecessary victory brought more losses and stretched the front even further. Leska had no idea where he was now. Meanwhile, Stratus was preparing an attack on Cobalt Station, where the young Padawans had fled. Essentially, the Republic had already lost this war. The front lines essentially did not exist, as there were no soldiers to organize them. The weather conditions prevented reinforcements from arriving in due measure and on time, and if they did, not everyone managed to land safely on the planet's surface, and there was no one to command the forces. 2 days later, the Republic forces on Jabiim lost their last Jedi general. During another skirmish with the Separatists, Leska, not having seen even a ray of light for a long time, was transfixed by a bright star peeking out from behind the clouds and was shot, leading her soldiers to continue fighting to the last, awaiting new assaults. 9 Padawans. This was all the command left to Jabiim. They took refuge at Cobalt Station, where they experienced the rare hour without rain for that planet. Standing by the lake's shore, as the clouds dispersed momentarily, the Jedi saw the final movement of this battle. A colossal separatist fleet silently flew right over their heads. The remaining Padawans, the depleted clone army, and tons of rusting Republic equipment were gradually encircled in one large cauldron. The fleet, represented by C-9,979 landing craft, brought reinforcements for the Jabiim nationalists, A-series assassin droids with high artificial intelligence and trained in all methods of killing. Stratus was pleased with Count Dooku's gift and announced to his troops that today they would make the Jedi suffer. Meanwhile, Captain Gilman connected with Cobalt Station and informed the Padawans that his loyalists and surviving clone soldiers were gathering in the planet's south, as the Republic had announced an evacuation. Unfortunately for the clones, the Republic transport was temporarily unable to land due to weather conditions, and Stratus, not wasting any time, had already gathered a 10,000-strong army ready to deliver the final blow to the enemy. The 9 Padawans and a small half-alive clone army decided on their last battle, which was already considered a suicide mission. Among them, Anakin heroically wished to fall, but the Chancellor personally ordered him to proceed to the evacuation zone. On the 39th day after the battle began, Alto Stratus's forces attacked Cobalt Station, intending to obliterate it. By this time, Skywalker was heading to the evacuation zone. The battle between Stratus's nationalists and the clones under the Padawan's command was the last and lasted 4 days, culminating in the complete destruction of the Cobalt Station garrison. All Padawans fought desperately but were eventually killed, and likewise, all assassin droids and most of the Nimbus commandos were destroyed. Aubrey Wynn, the last surviving Padawan, took the second lightsaber of her fallen comrade and, upon discovering Stratus, attacked him but was mortally wounded by a blaster shot. The dying Padawan fell upon the Jabiim and pierced him with both lightsabers, putting an end to this bloody campaign. By the 43rd day of the battle, Skywalker had arrived at the designated location and met with Captain Gilman, his loyalists, and the surviving clones. Although the weather conditions continued to leave much to be desired, 3 Republic transports attempted to land on the planet's surface. Only one of them succeeded. With 3 transports, the Republic lacked space for everyone, and with one even more so. A decision on the further course of evacuation had to be made within an hour, as the weather conditions continued to deteriorate and the enemy army, facing no resistance, was advancing towards them, and Anakin, as the only capable Jedi on Jabiim, had to make the choice. One could endlessly debate the correctness of the young man's choice, but this decision severely impacted the Republic's status. He ordered the evacuation of all clones and to leave the Loyalists on their planet. Gilman was shocked by this new betrayal by the Republic. Now he realized that Alto Stratus and his nationalists were right, that the Republic cared only about Jabiim's ore, not its population. In a rage, the captain struck Skywalker in the face, and accused the Republic of burning Jabiim in its ruthless war. Gilman and his men were about to seize the Republic transports but were stopped by Anakin, who nearly choked the captain with the Force. Releasing Gilman, Anakin apologized for his outburst of anger and, taking advantage of the confusion, hastily led the remnants off the planet. The last thing the Republic saw were crowds of refugees in tears, throwing stones and words of curses at the last transport, realizing they were doomed. One of the Republic's most devastating defeats in all the Clone Wars had finally concluded. After the Republic left Jabiim, it ultimately fell into the hands of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Captain Orlis Gilman was killed by the nationalist Thorn Crane, and the head of the Jabiim loyalists became his son, Nolan. All other Republic loyalists were publicly executed. During the battle on the planet's surface, the Republic lost 27 Jedi, more than 9,000 clone troopers, the entire fleet, and all heavy equipment, including numerous AT-ATs, whose combat baptism clearly did not go favorably. The enemy's losses were also substantial, though inferior to those of the Republic. Out of the 10,000-strong nationalist army, about 5,000 perished. Many battle droids were destroyed, including all Series A assassins. A large portion of the Nimbus commandos was also lost, who, after the death of Alto Stratus, were led by Colonel Matzi. The Republic's defeat on Jabiim was so overwhelming that the capital Coruscant was gripped by panic. For security reasons, it was decided to station the 501st Legion in the capital, which essentially began a punitive operation on the planet. Fearing that the details of the Jabiim catastrophe might cause even greater panic in society, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine prohibited extensive dissemination of this fiasco and compensated with a detailed report on the Battle of Argonar. This battle too ended in defeat for the Republic, but that is another story. Until the end of the Clone Wars, Jabiim actively aided the Separatists in the conflict. Anakin will return to the planet, but this time in the guise of Darth Vader, who many years later will give the order to wipe the planet from the face of the galaxy. This battle indeed makes one ponder many things and see the familiar characters from a different perspective.